Hi, I'm Tim Marshall. Welcome to R&B Showcase Live. We have a very special show for you here today, but before we get started, we're going to introduce our co-hosts. We got Julian Seward from 106.5 FM from the heart and soul of Center City, Philadelphia, WPPM, and Julian's going to tell us about his show.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, Tim, but my show is
Always.
My Bittersweet Philosophy. It is kind of like my mentality, placed to a playlist, a little bit of me with a little bit of music.
And we've got joining us Damon, Jeff Weiman. Tell us about your show, Jeff.
Thank you very much. It's a very big honor to be here today. You can catch me on famous56bossradio.com and also on mixlr.com/WJRG. Every Monday night, we do a Motown Philly show, 2 hours of Motown and 2 hours of the sound of Philadelphia. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, we go all over the place and have a little bit of fun.
I like that. You got my Motown hat on here, Jeff. So I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to ask you if I could borrow that on my way.
Well, I got to think about this. This is the authentic Motown hat from the Motown Museum, Damon, Jeff. So, in fact, Larry Cotton and his wife got me this hat right from the museum. So it's been glued to my head since I've gotten the hat. So. But we also want to introduce our other co-host joining us. He's a music historian and Mr. Kevin White.
Hey, how you doing today?
Thanks for joining us here today. I'm excited about this show. We have a very special guest. This gentleman, I got to let you know, if you've not heard him sing, you know that he is born to sing. And he's currently tours worldwide as a solo artist and as the lead singer for the Temptations Review featuring the legacy of Dennis Edwards. So please welcome to the R&B Showcase international recording artist, Mr. David C.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Pleasure.
I'm sitting in royalty today, huh?
Well, you are royalty, brother. We appreciate you being on the show. Now, were you in Birmingham, Alabama?
Yes, I am.
Is there something in the water in Birmingham? All great singers coming out of Birmingham. Eddie Kendricks and Paul Williams and Terry Weeks of the Temptations all came from Birmingham.
Yeah.
What's going on over there?
Oh, man, we got it in the mix pot if it ever get out.
Yes, indeed. I hear you, my brother. I hear you. So we go back a long way, David. I mean, I've known you for I'm like 20 years, 30. It's been a long time, since
been a long time.
You guys started, with the group for their early
Great
days.
run, though.
Yeah, yes. And so now how long have you been singing? Who inspired you to become a recording artist?
Oh, wow. To become a recording artist? Well, I tell you now, my aspiration come from my mom. She's the one who started me singing as long as I can remember, back when I was 4 or 5 years old. But the recording part come from people like, you ever heard of Roscoe Robertson?
Yes, I have. Mm-hmm.
Clarence Junior Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the guys that kind of like inspired me to do this R&B thing, period, because I kind of grew up with those guys and I sing with them a lot. So that's where it all started at, when I started listening to those guys around town, and they were recording artists, and I kind of picked it up from there. Ended up with Eddie Kendricks.
All right. Well, give us some history on how you got started with the Temptations' most celebrated lead singers, David Ruffin, Eddie Kendricks, and Dennis Edwards. How did this union come about? How did you become a part of that lineup?
Well, I was doing recording at one of the local studios here in Birmingham. And my bass player, Eddie Kendricks, had called him, and my bass player was playing with them at the time. And he told them that he was at the studio recording some stuff on me. And Eddie asked for a studio where he could drop by. And he came by, he helped me with background vocals and all of that. And his road manager asked him about getting me with the group. That's how it all started.
Who was the road manager? Was that Tunis at the time, or?
Tunis Wilson.
Yeah. I want to go a little bit into that. What was it like really working with them guys? I mean, you talk about David Ruffin, Eddie Kendricks, and Dennis Edwards as a unit, man. That must have been something to work with them guys. What was that experience like for you working with those gentlemen?
Powerhouse, man. It was a powerhouse, and I learned something from each one of them. Both of them had their own identity, should I say, but just watching them one after another. See, we started with each one would come on at a different time in the show, in the segment. And I was watching them as they perform and how they just mesmerized the audience at all times. So when we were singing, and each one of them had a different kind of persona going on there. So it was amazing, man. It was a great ride with all of them. I enjoyed it.
Now, I think that was around 1989, after they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that Dave and Eddie and Dennis decided to form that group. And then they decided, did they bring you in? Was that the time when they brought you into that group?
Somewhat, yes. I'll tell the story about this. Eddie brought me in as a substitute for David.
Okay.
And while David was there, everything ran that way. The three of us was in the background. There was me, a lady named Josie Short, and Nate Evans.
Okay.
And when David didn't appear some nights, I had to take over his part. That I was brought in for that specific reason. So, it was just a thing where I was a standby. So I was always there, but I was a standby to fill in for David when he didn't make it.
So you were there in the background. Then when you needed to step forward as a lead singer, you were able to fill those leads from David Ruffin leads, basically.
Exactly.
On stage. I got this one. I remember seeing you guys. You came to Camden, New Jersey. I think it was one of the outside amphitheaters, and I think you all came. And on that show was Dennis Edwards and Eddie Kendricks, and then you actually started doing some of David's leads, and then all of a sudden David Ruffin showed up and jumped up on the stage for My Girl. Was he known to do that quite a bit? Just jump up on the stage,
spin around. He'll spin around when My Girl came on and take the mic.
Grab the mic for somebody. And I think, Jeff, don't you have the album that they had that
I sure
you guys
do.
all put together? Because we're going to ask you about working with all of these gentlemen. Hold that up for the camera so we can see that. So Jeff Weiman is holding up an album that is called, I guess, is the original leads of the Temptations, and has all the members that you worked with. And who's the other gentleman? Josie's not in the picture. Is another gentleman.
No, he was gone then. That's when Eddie had formed the group to be all male, like he wanted it.
Okay, so now what was it like working with this grouping of gentlemen that particular time? Because you had Damon Harris, who was a former Temptation.
Harris was there. He and Eddie would switch up on their leads and things like that on certain songs. So they would switch up on those when, at certain segments of the show.
Now,
but it was wonderful working with all of those guys. There was on that picture was Charles Blackman and Nate Evans, and the rest of the guys, Dennis and Eddie. And we was traveling at like 6 people at that time. We cut this album out in L.A. with all of those guys. That's where the picture came from.
Okay. So we talked about the former members you toured with, and we talked about Damon Harris. Now, you also toured with some other former Temptations. Who were some of the other former Temptations? We mentioned Damon Harris, but there were some others that you worked with.
There was Ollie Woodson.
Joe Herndon or
Joe Herndon.
Joe Herndon.
Yes.
You worked with Joe? Okay, interesting.
Richard Street.
How about Paul Williams? You worked with Paul Williams Jr. too, Paul's son, right?
Paul Williams Jr. Yeah, we brought him into the Temptations review some years back.
And GC Cameron, and you worked with GC?
Yes.
You guys, you worked with everybody. What was it like working with Ollie Woodson?
Now it was always wonderful working with Ollie. You see, Ollie was a friend of mine long before he went to the Temptations.
Right.
I had a band called David C. and the Question Marks, and he played drums for me before. That was way back. before he even thought about going to the Temptations.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always a fella that he had to be the leader.
Okay.
He couldn't be the leader of my band,
Right.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't sit too well with him, but he was a great drummer.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick
He
question.
also played keyboards and
Yeah,
stuff.
he could play a lot of
Very
different
talented.
instruments. Yeah, very different instruments. So, and you guys had quite a blend when you were together. You and Ollie Woodson and Dennis Edwards. I mean, that harmony was magnificent. I mean, I see you guys in Atlantic City with that lineup. It was unbelievable sound, and that was quite a show. To have both you, Ollie, and Dennis in the same group was amazing.
Yeah, it was an experience that I wouldn't mind living a whole another one of those, you know, because it was just a lot of fun with Ollie, because he was always cracking jokes and, you know, the talent he had, you know, so it was great.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask David a little bit about the album Born to Sing.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
was my first album that I purchased of yours many years ago. And I was just wondering, in the timeline with that Temptations album that we were just talking about, where Born to Sing came out, or I should say was recorded, because I know I bought that Temptation album after I bought Born to Sing. So I was wondering, what came first, Born to Sing or those Temptation songs you just talked about being
Born to Sing came forward first.
Okay.
That was before I got with Eddie in 89. Born to Sing was somewhere around 85, 86. I was recording Born to Sing when I met Eddie. That's
Mhm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the songs that I was doing then, yeah, because I was doing a kind of like a tribute to the Temptations. I Wish It Would Rain.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I had another version of Wish It Would Rain on Born to Sing
Mm-hmm.
that I had featuring Eddie,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and Dennis
Right.
was also singing on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was, so Born to Sing came first. I wasn't with the group when yes sir. No, I wasn't.
No, because that was before that. So, but the interesting
right.
thing about that, though, David, is that "I Wish It Would Rain" is one of your signature songs that you do in concert. I mean, you take that song, dissect it, put it back together, and it's unrecognizable. You have a magnificent rendition of "I Wish It Would Rain" out there. That's one of your signature songs. You still do that in concert today.
Yeah, thank you so much for that great compliment.
You get a chance.
A compliment worth a lot of money, because I mean, to do something behind David, man,
Yes.
good God.
Mm-hmm. And you get a chance to work the crowd with that song and get the crowd involved with that and everything. So hitting them notes and speaking of that sound, I'm gonna talk about your voice, the flexibility you have. You're a dynamic vocalist, dynamic range. You can sing the David Ruffin type songs, but you also can sing. When I saw you do this in concert, I was kind of blown away. And I was telling Jeff and Kevin and Julian about it, is that you could sing. You sung Silent Night at a Christmas concert and sounded like Glenn Leonard's with that high tenor. I mean, how did that come about, man?
I don't know, man. That's just a gift from God. A gift.
Because I thought Chris was going to do it and hear you sang
sang
it. You know, I mean, it came as beautiful.
I'm
man.
sorry.
No, I thought Chris Arnold was going to sing, and then you jump up and sing. I'm like, David singing it. We're all like in awe. Like, what's going on? You know.
Yeah.
But you do it.
Well, just like I say, that comes from an early age with my mom. She taught all voices,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so she kind of like had me steered in the direction of all kind, you know. She sung bass, tenor, and all that stuff herself, so she wanted me to sing it all too.
Mm-hmm.
So she taught me as good as she could, and I love singing. So, you know, and back in the day, you know, Sam Cooke was my idol.
Mm-hmm.
But she taught me everything I know.
Mm-hmm. I was we talked about some of the former members of the Temptations, and we talked about Damon Harris. Now, I had the opportunity to put together the very first Damon Harris Cancer Foundation benefit concert, and you've also done some benefits for cancer. Tell us about some of those shows that you did and why you decided to do that.
Well, I'm an advocate for prostate cancer
Yes.
because I had prostate cancer myself. So
Okay. Oh, okay.
I figured I needed to do some awareness for especially Black men because we don't seem to do checkups too tough
Mm-hmm.
for prostates. Everybody kind of stay away from that, being big men and stuff like that. But I figured I needed to bring some awareness to people about prostate cancer, that it don't have to be a killer.
Mm-hmm.
If you kind of get your checkups and stuff right for it, you can kind of get around from letting it be a killer for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did shows for that. Some, and we was talking about starting it back up because I got distracted from it and I let it fall down. But we was talking about it just a couple of weeks ago about starting it back up again.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's much appreciated. My brother was just diagnosed with cancer, so it kind of hits home when I heard about you doing these things. So we commend you and thank you for your charitable work and things that you're doing for the community and helping to spread that awareness of this. We thank you for that.
Appreciate that.
I'm even not necessarily to switch gears too much, but I'm thinking about your early career and how you kind of spanned two genres, beginning with gospel music, then going into R&B. For you, especially growing up in, Alabama and growing up in the church, did you face any kind of pushback with crossover from gospel music into secular music?
Well, most of my young youth life was in gospel. I sung quartet. For years, just like I say, from a kid, I was singing gospel because we had a group within our family called the Johnson Harmonettes. And Johnson Harmoniers, I'm sorry. But that's, we started with that. And, by the time I got 16, I was seeing a whole lot of other things I wanted to have and do. So I started working and I kind of put the gospel thing on the back burner for a minute. And then we started it back up. But by the time we started it back up, I got drafted into the Army.
Oh,
okay.
Sure.
And I went from Vietnam. And coming out of Vietnam, we started back another gospel group. And that's how my group was started, David C. and the Question Marks, because while we was doing rehearsal for some gospel songs, somebody hit off on one of the secular music things, and I had to stop them and ask them which one they wanted to do, gospel or R&B, and they outvoted me on that one. So I started singing R&B then that was after I got out of the NOM, and that was in the year 70. And that's where it went from. I didn't get no kickback because if my mom said, okay, you do your thing for that, then God got his time picked for you, I would have never went. But she said it was all right if I sang a little R&B. She said a little R&B.
And so many of our great R&B singers, started in the church, and it definitely, that feeling of it carries through with a lot of their music. So yeah, the transition makes sense.
Right. That's where it all starts with gospel. Just about every artist you see started in gospel at some point.
I saw you at I think it was the Robin Hood Dell in the late 80s.
In Philadelphia, right.
With David, Eddie, and Dennis.
Wow.
I believe it was.
I didn't see that one.
I think that was at the Robin Hood Dell or one of them places. But I was with my father, and we had a chance to see you guys, and I'll never forget the rest of my life. It was one of the greatest shows I've ever seen, and you guys were great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I saw you a couple times with Adele with Dennis Edwards and yourself, and that was the group with Dennis Edwards and yourself and Bernard Gibson and Mike Patillo. And and David C.
Chris Arnold.
Chris Arnold on that high tenor, yes, indeed. And that's the same line that did a lot of the television specials. You guys did the PBS special in the Damon Theater in Pittsburgh. You had Lou Rawls on the show, Aretha Franklin and Frida Payne and Carl Carlton. That was a heck of a show. That was one of my most memorable shows with you guys because everybody was there. G.C. Cameron was singing with the Spinners at the time. As I mentioned, Lou Rawls are there, Aretha Franklin. I mean, the list goes on and on, for that particular show. That was another great show. And then we got to see him with the Jacksons also. You guys toured with the Jacksons. Right? What was that experience like working with the Jacksons? I guess Michael wasn't there at the time, but you guys did some shows with the Jacksons.
It was a great experience also. I mean, those guys are pretty talented too, man. I mean, good Lord. It was just amazing to be on the same stage with them, Because they had,
Now, I know you said you were a Vietnam vet and you came home in 1970. Was it hard or easy to adjust to getting back into music?
Well, tell the truth, that's my takeoff in music in that capacity that we were getting into. It was hard to adjust because coming out of the NOM, when you hit stateside, you had a whole lot of stuff you had to go through with the anti-war, what do you call it? Protesters.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
And they were against the war.
Mm-hmm.
And you coming home and they wanted to throw things at you, or they was mad at you for being over there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing. And then, a young black guy coming from Nam back to Alabama, that was a whole other kind of scenario. You still had the racial things going on, and you've been over there ducking bullets and rockets and everything else, so you didn't feel too good about that coming home and having to face the racial talk.
So I know G.C. Cameron also was a Vietnam vet too, so it had to have been hard on you guys. I mean, at some point to deal with all that.
And no doubt about it. I hear GC talk about some things, and I know he went through post-traumatic stress, and I also went through it myself without even knowing what it was until I kind of got with the group therapy, and I found out, I thought everybody else was crazy, and I found out that I was the one crazy. So I had to get used to all of that stuff, but it's something that I think you would probably go through for the rest of your life, because sometimes you just wake up out of a dream. And my wife sometimes have to jump out of the bed because I'd be going crazy.
Yeah, it must be pretty tough to think about. You did all you could do to serve your country. You thought you were doing a great thing, and then to come back and have people to react the way they reacted. I mean, that must have been very, very difficult, to do.
Man, and you putting it mild, if I stand it that way. But yeah, it was, because if you can get to a point to where you're ready to explode, and you will probably go postal on somebody by just not knowing what was going on with yourself, and you just didn't feel like you was treated properly when you get back home. And oh man, it's the same thing. Even in some instances right now, it's the same way.
There's a lot going on.
So I can tell you a million things about what I feel about that, but I guess that's
another show,
another story, maybe for a book.
About that. Yeah.
I will say, I thank you very much for serving our country and for what you did for us as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
In the same vein of, differences, you mentioned Germany earlier. How do the audiences, when it comes to your performances, how do they differ overseas than they would here in the States?
Well, in Germany, a lot of people in Germany speaks English, so they know what's going on, but it's still some difficulties in Germany with some of the people, as far as it goes right back to the racial part again in Germany, but Germany, I kind of like Germany, and the people received us. I mean, tremendously. I mean, we had crowds far as you could see, and out in pastures and wide open spaces, man. And I've been all. What I liked about Germany was I got a chance to see places like the Eagle's Nest, if you ever heard about that. That was where Hitler's stronghold was, and we got a chance to see all of those things and get some souvenirs from their wall that they tore down over there. And it was good. It was a nice experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the people, everybody wasn't the same, but it's just like anywhere else you go. You find some here, some stand over here. So, you know, it didn't bother me. I was there to entertain.
You sound like you've been all over the world, David. I know you did some things in the UK with as a solo artist. You've been all over, huh?
Oh, man, I've been to places people dream of going, man. And I may not have hit all over the world, but I've been just about around. I miss going to Australia. That's the place I miss.
Okay.
And I'm still going over there one day, hopefully. But yeah, it's been quite an experience.
Well, we talk about you not only touring as a solo artist, you're now the lead singer of the Temptations Review featuring the legacy of Dennis Edwards. Tell us about this group that you have together now, because, you know, Dennis is gone right now. We know that he passed a few years ago. But tell us about keeping this legacy alive in this group, the Temptations Review featuring the legacy of Dennis Edwards.
Well, it's basically the same group, because when we started this off with the Temptations Review, it was Dennis, Chris Arnold, Mike Patello, and Bernard Gibson, and me. And so this group is the same except for one person. His name is Eddie Cameron.
Eddie Cameron, okay.
So it's basically the same review.
You have the same core.
For that one person.
The same core members, yeah.
Is there a favorite that you do now that gets everybody going crazy when you do your shows? A favorite song?
Yeah, My Girl.
That's always the fan favorite, right?
My Girl, Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Yeah, those songs, all of those are crowd pleasers.
Staples of Temptations music, and that sound, that catalog. So, well, David, I thank you for taking the time out to be part of the show here today, sharing some history on the group and sharing and also helping to keep Dennis Edwards' legacy alive with the, for the Temptations. And we do an annual tribute each year. Myself, Alex does it. We do a tribute to Dennis Edwards and help keep his legacy alive and keep it out there and keep his name out there and his body of work out there. So I commend you. I thank you for doing that and for keeping it going. And I do look forward to seeing you this weekend in Atlantic City. And while you're on tour, I'm glad you guys are still doing it and coming back around. It's been quite a while since I've seen you. So I'm looking forward to the show.
I sure hope we be pleasing enough for y'all when you see us. But we're going to do our best. And to keep his legacy alive, well, just to keep the Temptation thing going, you know. So, and it's been quite of experience for me, and I enjoy it very much. And I'm always thrilled to hear that people like you guys are enjoying it also. So keep us up in prayer, and we'll do the same for y'all.
We'll definitely do that. So why don't we just give a round of applause to Mr. David C. and thank him for taking the time out and being part of this R&B Showcase, man. We appreciate you and thank you so much. I'm Tim Marshall, and thank you for joining us for R&B Showcase Live.